Hi there and welcome back to the Made by Jo YouTube channel. My name is Jo. I'm a knitter, sewer and crocheter based in Fife in Scotland. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm not filming a podcast, but I will be filming a little crafty vlog. I am on holiday at the moment and I have a day, it's just about 11 o'clock now I think. I have a day to just sew, which is really nice and doesn't happen very often. So I have a couple of plans that I want to work on. As always, I will plan so much and only get half of it done, but there is a couple of things I want to do today. When I craft, I love to watch a YouTube video, whether that be a vlog or a podcast or something, especially when I've run out of like TV programs to watch or films to watch. So I thought I would film one today for you in case you also want someone to craft alongside. Because yeah, I think it's nice to give some community feel when you're crafting by yourself in your house. So today there is two main sort of segments of my sewing. The first is that I'm working on a quilt, a Christmas tree skirt quilt for my cousin. I started this at Christmas time. My intention was to get it to him before Christmas. That has obviously not happened, so I said I would get it to him for next Christmas. Ow. But I thought that if I don't start it now, it's going to wait until December and I'm going to run out of time again. So far I am making sawtooth quilt blocks for my nephew, for my cousin. And I have made 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've made 4 quilt blocks for him. And I think if I consult my almanac, I have been making up the pattern as I go really. Okay, 10 minutes and I searched through the whole craft room later and I found it. It was in another book that I have. I'm making sawtooth stars. I have done 4 and I want to make 9 total. The plan was to do 4 with a red background, which I've done, 4 with a green background, and then 1 that's just like a leftover scraps mix. So at the moment I've got the 4 on the red background done, and I think I have 1 set of the things I need to make the red stars cut out. So I need to do a bunch of cutting of the green background and I need to do a bunch of cutting of the red star fabric. So we've got a fair amount of cutting to do, which is my least favourite, but we will do it. I think I could probably get 3, well if I'm going for 3 I may as well go for all 4. So I think if I do a lot of cutting I will get 4, my aim is to get the 4 other stars done. That'll get me to 8 and then I'll just have 1 left to do with whatever scraps I have. So that is the plan first. So let's just leave my chatting with you there. Because otherwise I'm gonna say all these other plans I want to get done and I'm not gonna get them done. So that is my plans. When I went to East Neuk Knits with my mum, there was a lovely fabric stall there and I picked up this beautiful, excuse all the threads, tartan fabric. So this is going to be the back of the quilt and then obviously this is going to be part of the front. So I'll pop these off to the side just now and we'll get cutting. I do also have a package to open, excuse the crinkling, which is some batting. I was hoping it wouldn't... Ooh, thank you for your order. One of the items you ordered was sold out. Ah, so my wadding was sold out. That's very annoying. So this is not the wadding I thought it was, but it's actually interfacing. This is Viseline H640, which is just like a thick lining or interfacing, sorry, which I'm going to use for project bags. So that will be for later on in the video if I get there. And now I need to go and contact the customer service team as well. Don't you just love when these things happen? Right. My timer has just gone off for my rolls because I'm making hamburger rolls at the same time. So I'm going to go downstairs, I'm going to roll out my hamburger dough, and leave it to prove for another 2 hours or something, and then I'm going to come back up and we're going to get cutting. So to make a sawtooth star is quite straightforward actually, considering I'm not a very skilled quilter. You will have cut out a bunch of squares depending on your size and your background colour, and a bunch of rectangles in your star colour. And what we're going to be doing is sewing these squares, hope you can see this, onto these triangles, rectangles, and you're kind of just going whoop down like that, and eventually they will be the peaks of your stars. So I'm going to set up a big long chain going one way of these with all of my different 4 fabrics, and I'm just going to piece them all together in one giant strip is the plan. Now I'm doing this from memory, so I really hope I've got this right. So now I'll have super low, a whole stack of bits. So this is where I started with my leader, so I can cut that off, keep you for later. And then I just need to go and cut these apart, and I am actually going to lie them in their groupings or I'm going to get muddled up. So I'm just splitting these up, because when you do the big chain, they're all attached together in a big long loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then you're going to end up, well, for me I have a bunch of these, but if you're just doing 1 star you only need 1 set of these. You're going to end up with a bunch of things that look like this. Now this sort of corner piece that you've just sewed is wastage, so you need to cut that off with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then press these guys down. I know I said I wasn't going to give you a tutorial, so I'm not. I'm just giving you an overview of what I'm going to do. So I'm now going to cut all of these guys and press them open before I do the next lot. So that's a lot of cutting again, but this one doesn't have to be so precise, which is good, and a lot of pressing. The task of pressing. Now, one of the few things I have learnt from people in my quilting journey, shall I say, is that you always try and press to the dark side. So in this case, the dark side is the red. So I'm going to press all of my triangle pieces with the seam towards the red so that it's less likely to show through my quilting. So whenever I'm doing this, I just try and work out whatever one I think is the darker side and I press towards that. Now, these will not be perfect or particularly uniform, but I know that quilting is quite a precise art, but for me it's all about the fun of giving it a go. And like I say, this is for my nephew. I keep saying my nephew. He's not my nephew, he's my cousin. This is for my cousin, and he's just moved into his first house, and so I know that whatever this looks like in the end, he will love it, and it'll be under his Christmas tree. Like, who's going to be looking that closely? They're just going to see this lovely quilted tree skirt and think, what a pretty item he has. They're not going to be like, oh, that person's sawtooth star seam isn't quite accurate, is it? Because the only people that really see that is quilters or crafters. And I'm learning to be a lot less harsh on myself when it comes to crafting. You don't have to be good at everything. Like, for example, this seam isn't exactly the straightest. But this is just a hobby, something I do for fun, and something I tell my friend all the time, because she's always like, oh, I can't try it, blah 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 blah, is that you do not have to be good at your hobbies. And that's something I think that we can learn, or we should try and remember every now and again as crafters, that you do not have to be good at your hobbies, and you're not going to be good at everything the first time you pick it up. I actually, when I first started crafting, I learnt to make a quilt because I went to Aldi and I bought a fabric fat quarter set that was Harry Potter themed, because I loved Harry Potter and it was in the middle of COVID, and I thought, what can I do with this? And I went home and I googled what can you make with fat quarters, and that's when I stepped into the world of quilting. And the first thing, or one of the first things I ever sewed was a small baby quilt. Which is kind of crazy to think about. And then I realised, oh my gosh, you can make so many things. And I started to make bags, and I started to make a bunch of other stuff actually. I know I just told you about pressing towards the dark side and then I've pressed towards the light side here, but to be honest it's because I can't be bothered. But yeah, so I moved on to bags and then clothes and then into knitting, and ended up doing all of my crafts. So really I have quilting to thank for me finding my crafting journey. But yeah, back then I wasn't perfect at it, and I mean that's coming on, when was 2021 I think, or maybe 2020 is when I started, so it's been 6 years. I've not made a load of quilting stuff, but I've definitely done some quilting, but I would definitely still call myself a beginner, and so I don't need to be good at this because it's just for fun and it's just for me. So now I have 4 sets of what look like very weird oblong rectangles, and essentially what I need to do now is do exactly the same thing the other way. So we've just sewn these triangles on, so now I need to go back through every single one I've just done and do exactly the same the other way to make 2 triangles on each of these pieces. So I'm going to turn off my iron, because always remember to turn off your iron. Then I'm going to sew the second half, and I'll come back once I have made those and I'm ready to piece the block together. Okay, so I have been watching a knitting traditions video and I'm 13 minutes in, and I started it when I left you, and I now have all of my pieces sewn into their next stage, so it goes faster than you would perhaps think. And what I've been left with is a square, a bunch of little squares, and these. And these now come together super quickly, because your little weird triangle things that we've been building make the star, and then these guys become the corners, and that is your quilt block. So it really does come together quickly. I am going to just try and piece together them star by star. I think that's going to be the easiest way for me to keep track of everything. But like, experienced quilters will just do this with all of their blocks. Maybe I should try that. So that's one block ready to be sewn. So then we've got our next one. I'm gonna make sure. It's difficult when these are all when these words are multiple different ways, because you can put the block whatever you want. But like I say, these are not perfect, but they're handmade and they're made by me, and therefore they are perfect to me. Making sure that all of the bits that we want are right side up. Some of my fabrics are not very obvious which way's which, like right side versus wrong side, so I just have to be a bit careful to make sure I'm always wrong side down. That's another block done. But I think this looks really good. And once these 4 blocks are with my other 4 blocks, I can have a look and see what scraps I've got left, because I've only got 1 block left to do. And for a Christmas tree skirt, the way I'm doing it is that it will be circular. It's heavily inspired by the Sydney Graham Christmas tree skirt that came out this year, which is called, oh, I can't remember. I will put it in the description box, but I'm sure you've probably seen it as it's very popular. This is heavily inspired by her pattern, but I have made a Christmas tree skirt for myself before, so I have a base pattern to work from and I know how to quilt, so I kind of thought I don't need to buy that pattern, although I would buy Sydney Graham patterns. She is an incredibly good designer. And I have bought her patterns in the past, so I would recommend, if you've never done this before, to buy her pattern. But yeah, these are, it's gonna be a circular Christmas tree skirt, and obviously there needs to be a hole where the tree goes in. So this sort of middle piece, this middle star, is gonna be cut up anyway. So part of me is thinking maybe I just work out what the full size of this block is and just cut one singular piece of fabric to save myself the work, and that way I don't have to make another quilt block after I've made these. But I'm now going to piece these together and then we will have blocks. So So I will set you up so you can see me sew it on the machine, and then we will be done. Okay, so I'm now at 39 minutes on my video, so 39 minus 14 is 25. So 25 minutes later, and I have these little quilt sandwiches, which when I press open, should become, in theory, sawtooth stars. Yay! So this is a sawtooth star quilt block. Ta-da! And I have now done all of the ones with the green background, which I'd wanted to achieve. I don't know what time it is. Is it? Sorry. What time is it, iPad? It is 1:30. So when did I start filming? 11? So 2.5 hours, and I have made, from this just being fabric, not prepped, I have made 4 sawtooth star quilt blocks. So it's not fast. Quilting is definitely not a fast hobby, but it is a lot of fun. And I do find that, like, at this point here where I'm ironing open this quilt block, I just think it's kind of magical how it all comes together, because this is just triangles. Like, all I did was cut squares and rectangles out of fabric and then turn some into triangles, and here we are. I pressed this one earlier just to check I was doing everything right. This one's got a bit of a puffy middle because I didn't get the numbers quite right, but like I said, are these perfect? No. Do they need to be in any way perfect? No, they do not, because it's a hobby and it's fun. Second reminder, unplug your iron before you burn yourself. So, move the iron out of the way also. I have, now I'll show you in all of their glory, and I'll get the red ones as well to show you. So, this is my quilt backing. This maroon and green tartan fabric. That's my red timer. And the quilt top will be made up of this lovely star, which has got Grogu in the middle because my cousin is a Star Wars fan. And this beautiful one with the gold snowflakes in the centre. This one with my gingerbread man. And then we've got, oh, I didn't realise I've done the exact reverse, that's fun. The exact reverse of one another, these two. We'll just not put them next to each other in the quilt top. And then we have this beautiful one, this beautiful guy, and then just a plain red star to finish. So that is my 8 star blocks. I will lay them out 3, 3, 3, or 3, 3, and then a 2 in the middle. And I'm gonna, I think, just put fabric in the center. If we look at my, where'd you go? Doodle, this was what I had envisioned. So a lot of the corners of these stars are going to be cut off anyway, so I think I'll just have a look and check which ones are my favourite stars, and they'll be the ones that I get the most out of. And then yeah, there'll be a big old hole in the centre of this one, so I might just make a square. What size are you finished block? 12 by 12. Yep. So I might just cut a 12 by 12 piece of fabric and put that as the centre here, and then the rest of them will go around the outside, and we'll be able to piece it together and make it a quilt top. But for today, this is what I wanted to achieve. So I will now take this and my fabric here. Let's just make it look nice, Joe, so when you come in the room you enjoy looking at it. And this is now a project for another day, when I'm feeling in the mood to actually quilt through my machine. Now we're going to check my bread because it has beeped, so the buns are ready to be cooked. So these beautiful buns are now egg washed, and I'm just waiting for the oven to preheat and then they're going to go in there. So while I do that, I'm going to make Albie some scrambled egg with the leftover egg wash, and I'm going to have some scrambled egg for my lunch too. Just going to move these out the way. Ignore all the flour on my worktop. I know it's bad. We need to sort it. So I've just, oh, well, the fan's on, sorry. I've just taken my buns out of the oven and they look amazing and they feel amazing. So I'll have to report back on how these are because I'm really pleased. There's been a lunch break, there's been washing done, dishes done, hamburger buns made. It's been a bit chaotic, but I'm back. So now we've finished with our quilt blocking star things. I want to move on to the second thing I wanted to get done today, which is making a project bag. I recently got to 1,000 subscribers. I'm very pleased and grateful, and as a sort of reward for that I want to do a giveaway. So I said in my last podcast I was going to make a bag to give away for that. As part of the giveaway I want to make a handmade project bag. I don't know why that was so difficult to say that first time. And I've decided that that's what I want to sew up today, or at least prep today. I know I can't finish it today because I don't have enough drawstring cord, but I can at least get as much of the way through before I run out of light. So the style of project bag I'm going to do is this lovely cherry bag. It is a circle bottom bag with a drawstring top. I've got a little measuring tape on mine, and mine is currently housing a doodle cowl. I have gifted one of these to my mum, I've gifted one of these to my friend Maggie, I've gifted one of these to my friend Rebecca, and every single person has loved it and has really enjoyed using it. So I am going to make this for my giveaway. So I was having a think about colourways and what I want to do, and I've got a few different projects bags that I want to make for me and for my mum and for this giveaway, but I thought I would show you how I've made this bag, because there's been other types that I've made in the past that people have asked about, but I've also been asked about how I do this, and I don't really follow a pattern, I just made a pattern up. So I thought I would show you. It's not going to be a tutorial as such, but it's going to be basic instructions. So if you have basic sewing skills, you should be able to follow this, or at least work out what you want to do yourself. But I'll give you a sort of overview of how I put this together if you wanted to also give one a go. So the first thing I did when I was creating the pattern for this bag was have a look at bags that I already have. So I have a mood bag, a circular bottom mood bag. I can't remember the name of it, but I have it and it's downstairs. And so all I did was trace that bag onto a piece of paper. So I worked out that this is 22 centimeters in diameter, and I essentially just used a compass to draw this out. Obviously I got to the edge of the paper up here and down here, but I just make it into a circle when I do it and it's absolutely fine. So this is 22 centimeters across the way, and I have to add seam allowance to this when I draw it out. And once I had this and I knew what my diameter was, I could work out the circumference, which I did, and I kept the maths. So based on that diameter, the circumference needs to be 69 point blah 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 centimeters, and then I add a 0.5 centimeter seam allowance. So essentially I need to cut a piece that is 70 centimeters width-wise, and that will make the outer of the bag that goes around the bottom. So I need a 70cm outer piece so that it can go around the circumference of my circle bottom. So I always cut 71cm for safety, or 28 inches, and then you can choose whatever height you want your bag to be. I have done 12 inches, I have done 10 inches, I've made the bottom with a cork or a leatherette, and then done the top in a nice cotton fabric. I've done lots of different variations, but for today I'm going to do simple, one outer fabric and then a lining, and I'm going to add a pocket to the lining as well. So essentially, to start, I have already cut one piece of my lining fabric. I made a bag in this fabric, for my friend Maggie. So I'm using the leftovers that I have from that. So this piece is 28 inches long by 12 inches tall. It was just the piece that I had, and I thought, well, I'll just make this bag 12 inches then. So this one is one for myself. I'm going to be using, this is the lining. I then have this beautiful flower, I don't know why flower lost me there, this beautiful flower lining for a pocket, and then I'm going to be using another one of the tartans that my mum and I got at East Nuke Knits. Now, we picked this up from a small stand and I didn't take the name of it, so I'm really sorry, but it is actually a Taris tweed, and it came with these labels. So my mum and I bought this together, which means I need to make a project bag for myself and a project bag for my mum out of this. So this is the first on the list today. So I'll need to cut double. So for one of the bags, I'm going to use this as the lining and this as the pocket. And then because of the amount of fabric I've got, for the other one of these bags, I'm going to use this as the lining and the dove fabric for the pocket. So I'll put that to the side because I'm going to show you on the lighter fabric. And then it wouldn't be a Made by Jo giveaway if it wasn't rainbow and crazy. So apologies if rainbow and crazy is not your vibe, but for me it is. So I have picked out some of my favourite rainbow fabrics. In summer last year, I made a jumpsuit out of this beautiful rainbow tartan. And I have leftovers of this, so I'm going to make the outer of the bag, the project bag for the giveaway, out of this fabric. And then I have this wonderful Tula Pink hexagon fabric that's also a rainbow, so that's going to be the lining if I have enough. And then I have this wonderful scrap of plants and bugs and insects, and this I'm hoping I'll be able to get a pocket out of. So that is the plan for the project bag, the giveaway project bag colours as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prop you up, I'm going to show you me cutting it out on the lighter fabrics, the less rainbow, because I thought that would be easy to see, but I'm going to then cut out the rainbow and we will sew the rainbow fabric up together, and hopefully by the end of this video we will have a sewn project bag that one of you might be able to win. I will be announcing the giveaway on my next podcast, and then picking a winner before the podcast after that, so you've got a bit of time, but yeah, hopefully you will enjoy watching the giveaway, or watching me make the giveaway bag, sorry. So let's get into it because I'm procrastinating, and I will show you how I cut up the pieces for my project bags. Okay, so the good thing about the project bags that I make is that you need 2 sets of almost everything, which makes it nice and easy because you need to cut one out of your lining and one out of your main fabric. I'm going to start off by doing the bottom of my bag. So like I said, this is a circle that I have created myself. If I was feeling wild, I would probably just go around this with my rotary cutter, but in the interest of being a good tutorial person, I will advise you, not what I do, but you know how you should do it. So I will trace around this with approximately a ½ centimetre seam allowance. I am not particularly concerned about being overly accurate, because my sewing never is overly accurate, but approximately ½ centimetre of seam allowance around your circle. And I do this of my lining first, particularly when I am sewing with a tartan or a leatherette or something similar, because I find that they are harder to draw on. Leatherette isn't usually that bad, but tartan is notorious for what is it called? Fraying. So I don't like to move that about too much. So I use this as a template essentially. So I'm now going to use my scissors for a circle because I find it easier, and all I'm going to do is cut around. So we now have a circle cut out of our lining. This will be in the seam allowance, so I'm not worried about that. And it is your circle plus your seam allowance. So I'm going to put the pattern piece and this off to the side while I show you my next bit. So the next piece of your lining you will need to cut out is a big rectangle. So like I said, for a 22 centimeter diameter circle, you need 28-inch or 70 centimeter wide piece. So this is folded in half, but this is 70 centimeters wide and then 12 inches tall. So I have cut this out already. So this is my other piece of lining, and it is able to go in the pile as well. And that leaves us with our pouch, our little pocket. Sorry, completely forgot the word for pocket. And I have a decent bit of fabric for this, but I have to bear in mind I will be using this for the lining of a second bag and the circle part. So what I'm going to do is just double check that I will have enough fabric to do all I want to do with this Liberty fabric. So bear with me while I do that, and then I'll be right back once that's done. My apologies, my mother called me. So I was just working out, come on camera, there we go. I'll just go this way a bit. I was just working out what size I wanted to sew my pocket, and I was just working out what I had left. So this was sort of the scraps I had left once I had cut out the two linings for my two bags that I'm making. So what I've decided to do is just use what I had basically. So I would suggest that you do this too if you're using scrap fabric, but my inside, like I said, is 70, well yeah, technically 70 centimeters wide and 28 inches, but the maximum width I had was just over 11 inches in width. So my pocket will be approximately, well, just under half of the width of my lining, which is totally fine. And for this version, which is the better version, I cut out a big rectangle that was the width I wanted the pocket, and then I doubled the height that I wanted the pocket, because then when I sew it, it will be folded over like that, and this will be what you see from the inside, and this will be stitched in. So my total height of this pocket is just over 5 inches, which is slightly less than half of my total bag height, but it's what I had, so it's what we're working with. I would suggest you make them slightly taller if you have the choice. So if it's a 12-inch bag, I would usually go for a 6-inch pocket or slightly more. But like I say, can't do that here, so I'm just making do. So I'm using this piece for my pocket for one of the bags, and then for the other I only had enough for sort of 1/2 of that, so I've cut out 2 pieces in the different fabrics, and I will sew them right side together until they are just one piece in the same size as that previous piece. So that's my pockets. Apologies if that didn't make much sense. I am doing my best. I then cut out the 2 outer pieces for this fabric bag. Again, they are 28 inches long and 12 inches tall, and I need 2 of them for my 2 different bags. So for the purposes of not getting confused, I have one of these bags here is getting this beautiful floral Liberty lining, and then it is getting this lovely dove pocket. So that is one of the bags I'm making. And then the second bag I am making is getting this beautiful dove lining with a dove circle for the bottom, and then it will have a pocket that is made of 50/50, and I will probably have the pocket the floral side out so you can see it on the inside. So all that's left to cut out for this bag is your tartan fabric. There is another piece we'll cut out later for the drawstring casing, but for the main body of the bag just now, we just need these pieces. So I'm just going to get what I have left of my tartan fabric. Now, because I'm making 2 bags, I need 2 circles, but if you're just making one, you only need 1 circle. And I'm going to use one of the lining circles that I've already cut out to make sure they're the same size with seam allowance. So I'm going to make sure this is folded in half, just the same size as the circle is. That's as close as I think I'm going to get. And then I'm going to cut around it. This time I am going to use my rotary cutter because it's with the tartan material, so this will probably be easier with the 2 layers. Now just be really careful when you're doing this because obviously rotary cutters are very sharp, you don't want to hurt yourself. And make sure you're applying firm pressure and never put your hand in front of the blade. Cut. There we go. And then I just pull this away to make sure I've cut fully through both layers. And then I'm just going to fold up my remnants of this tartan and pop it to the side for now. And that is my 2 bottom pieces of the pouch. Now I'm going to whip through and cut this out of the rainbow fabric, and then once I am done with that I will come back and show you how to put it together. Okay, so in order for this to make sense, I'm just going to focus on one bag and tell you about this one bag that we're going to make together. So for now I have one 12" by 28" outer fabric, one matching circle cutout of a 22 centimeter diameter circle with seam allowance. I have a matching piece in a lining fabric and a matching circle in a lining fabric, and then I have a pocket. This pocket is 10 inches wide and 12 inches, the rectangle is 12 inches tall, so that when folded in half it makes a 6" pocket. Now I did try my hardest to get this beautiful rainbow of fabric that way, but this is just too shallow for a pocket for a bag, particularly a bucket bag, so we are just going to have to enjoy the butterflies and stuff this way. And I think we'll do the brighter side out because it's a me bag. So now I've cut all of these pieces out, I do now need to do what's called interfacing. If you are brand new to bags, this might not make any sense to you, so I'll give a brief overview. Interfacing is a sort of thicker fabric that you iron on or sew on to your main fabric to give it a different structure. So in this case, this is sort of a medium weight interfacing that's got blue dots on one side, and I have cut a piece for my outer fabric bottom, and I have cut a piece for my outer fabric like the sides of my bag. This is particularly important when you're using a lightweight fabric. So in the case of this is actually like a clothes fabric, so it is very light, very drapey, doesn't have any structure. So in order to make sure that the bag has some sort of rigidity, I guess, we will be ironing, or I will be ironing on some interfacing so that it's got a little bit more like sturdiness. So I had this interfacing anyway, it's the one that arrived the other day for something different, but I'm going to use it here. There is other things, other types of interfacing. This, for example, is woven interfacing, it's super thin. I have this in stash, so I'm going to add it to my lining fabrics just to give them a little bit more sturdiness, particularly because this one here is super thin. If you're using like 100% cotton fabric, you probably won't need this, but I have it in stash, so I'm going to be using it anyway. And this is called Visaline F220, in case you were wondering. So in order to attach this stuff, you need to iron it on. So I'm going to get my ironing board back out, and then I'm going to iron through the fabric to adhere the glue dots, which are on this, to this fabric. I'm going to do that for this piece, and I'm going to do it for my outer rectangle as well, and then I will be finally ready to start sewing this bag. So, two things have happened since we last spoke. One, the lighting's gotten terrible, so now I have to use my light, which when I stand here covers my desk. I apologise. Maybe if I put you over here, does that help? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Okay, the second thing is Angus fixed my desk, so I'm no longer breaking my back. What a go, what a good egg. So, I have now got one pocket piece interfaced. I have one lining bottom interfaced. I have one lining sides interfaced, and then I have a bottom interfaced with the thicker stuff for the outer piece, and then again a sides interfaced with a thicker interfacing. So what we now need to do is start putting together the bag. Now the first thing you need to do that is fold your outer pieces right sides together, and all we're going to do is sew down this seam. I use anywhere between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch seam allowance, just depending on how I am feeling that day, and I stop about 1/4 inch from where the two tartans finish, so that it's got space to splay out when we then attach it to this. So for the sake of ease, I'm going to do the same steps on the lining as I do on the main fabric just now. So I'm going to sew down this long side seam here at 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch seam allowance on both the outer and the lining fabric. Are you even sewing if you don't spend half of your time re-threading your needle? And my needle threader hates me. Hi, Future Jo here, just popping in to say that I get quite a few of these steps messed up. I do them in the wrong order and I have to go back and just make some adjustments, so if you're interested in making a project bag like this, please watch the entire video before you start. That way you'll make sure that you get the steps in the right order, because I do my best to try and explain what I'm doing and how to do it correctly, not backwards like I end up doing. Enjoy! Now, when you're working with tartan, it has a nasty habit of fraying, so I always go down my seam and do a zigzag stitch so that it doesn't fray completely on you. Fabric frays, so I don't need to do a zigzag stitch. Okay, so now we're back at the desk. with the two sewn pieces of fabric, and now we need to attach them to our wonderful circles. Now when you have done what we've done and added a thicker interfacing to this fabric, it can make it a little bit more tricky. But what I do is mark the four corners of this fabric. So obviously your seam is 1, so I just snip at this end, then I fold this in half and I match up my snipped mark with my seam, and I snip these two corners as well. So now I have 4 points on here, and I just mimic the same thing on here. Now because this isn't a perfect circle, because I drew it myself, this isn't going to be 100% accurate, but it's just to give you a rough guide, because it'll make your life easier when we come to it, attaching these two pieces. You're just snipping a small amount so that it's not going to be obvious once you've actually sewn the final thing. But now I have 4 snip marks here and 4 snip marks here. So what I do is I find my seam and I match that up with one of my snip marks. So there's a snip mark, there's my seam, and I'm going to pop them together. Now I also need my pins, and I'm going to pin that together like that, so it's in there. I'm then going to find the opposite 2 notches, so there's one, and the opposite notch over here. I'm going to place them together, and I'm actually just lining up the 2 tartan pieces, not the interfacing. And I'm going to, that way it needs to go in based on the way I've done the other one. Pin that in as well. Then I'm going to do the same process for the other 2 notches, matching them up with their notch buddies, and I'm pinning from the outside because that is the way I'm going to sew when I get to my machine, once I have matched all of these guys up. So you can, that's a pun if you think of it. You can go around and put pins in every so often on your circle, and sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't, depends how I'm feeling and what I've got on that day. If I've got a lot on, I won't pin it, I will just fly by the seat of my pants and hope for the best. Other days I will pin it. Today, for example, I'm going to pin it because it's for someone else. If it was just for me, I probably wouldn't bother. I like to actually hold it this way to push your little lining circle in a bit, or bottom circle, sorry. And then pin. And again, I'm just trying to line up the 2 tartans and not really pay attention to the interfacing. In an ideal world, I would have snipped the interfacing first, but I'm lazy and I didn't want to. So we've not snipped the interfacing, which is why it's a little bit more confusing. But essentially you're just lining it up all the way around. And now I've done this, I'm gonna sew it and then repeat the process for the lining. The way I'm going to sew it is with the flat part down on my sewing machine, because then I find I can smoosh this bit around to get it in my machine. I will show you on 2 times speed while I do it, and I will just go all the way around this circle, and then I will go around it. Once I've double checked I've caught everything, I'll go around it with a zigzag stitch as well. So now I've sewn all the way around, I just go around the bottom to check I actually caught everything, which it looks like I did, although there's a bit tight. And then I'll flip it the right way out and do the same process. So just go around the seams, double checking that there isn't anywhere that I have missed, which looks like there isn't this time, which is fab. This is the start of your bucket bag. But I'm just going to grab it and pull it the right way out again, or the wrong way out again, sorry. And I'm going to do the same as what I did on the side seam and go around with a zigzag stitch just to make sure I catch everything. This time I'm going to do it from with the circle side up, so I can see that I'm catching all of the layers in my zigzag stitch. There we go. Okay, so now I've just been around the outside, I'm gonna go around with my scissors and just cut off the excess that I don't need. But that is the first part of your bag done. So I've just realised I've been an idiot. Let me see if I can, there you go. I've actually started attaching my bottom, but then I realised we haven't even put the flaming pocket in, so that's slightly annoying. What we're going to do then to do the pocket, and what you should do, apologies about messing up this timing, but if you want to add a pocket in, you can fold it right sides together, and then you're going to sew down this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, down this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you're going to flip it open. Okay, and I'm going to do that now and then come back. Okay, so then you'll have a pocket piece that's sewn down at either end. All you need to do is flip that right sides out, and then I just use my finger to push those corners out nicely, those top 2 corners, and then this makes your pocket. Now, in the case of me messing it up, I'm going to take this to the machine and sew down here and down here. If you wanted to, you can either sew it here so it's in the middle of your bag, or you can actually attach this to your lining seam, so you could rip out this seam we did right at the beginning and pop this in as well, and then that will attach it to your seam. But as I said, this isn't a tutorial, this is just me showing you how I do it, so I did tell you I would probably get it wrong. I'm now going to take this to my sewing machine and sew this back on, and then I'm going to reattach the bottom and sew up this circle so we're in our final lining position. Apologies for messing this up. I will put a little bit at the start of me making this bag that says watch the whole clips before you make your bag, so people know to do this bit before. Okay, time for some real talk. Still sewing talk, but still real talk. I have reached the point of my progress where I have done so much sewing today that I am past the point of doing it well. This happens quite frequently to me. I don't know if it happens to a lot of people, but if I've been working on a project for a lot of the day and then I get, like, I'm really close to the end, like realistically I'm 2 steps away from the end here, I will push through being tired and grumpy and not getting steps right and then end up with something I don't like. And that's because I'm so close to the end that I'm like, oh, just do it and it'll be fine. Don't do it. This is my advice to you. Don't just push on and do it and be fine. Because actually, there's no rush for me to do this. I was having a lovely day. I still am having a lovely day. But there's no rush for this to be done. Realistically, I'm not going to be posting this out to anyone for another month and a bit. So there is no rush. I was rushing to get through it, if I'm being completely honest, because I wanted to get it done for the video. But that's just not realistic. So instead of it being a 1-day craft with me, it's just going to be a couple of days craft with me, because today is Tuesday. I am busy tomorrow on Wednesday, but I have a free morning on Thursday, and I have a free weekend this weekend, which is why I stopped pushing myself to get through multiple bags today and just focused on this one bag, because I have time the rest of the week. And instead of pushing on, getting frustrated and being super tired, what I'm going to do is seam rip this seam, because I never like to leave seam ripping to do. That's never a good first task. I'm going to seam rip this seam that I pushed through and did wrong. I'm going to explain to you where I am just now in the process, and then I'm going to try again on Thursday. So where we are in this bag is we have attached and made all of the lining, so the lining is now done. We have attached or we have made the main body of the bag, so that is now done. All that is left to do is to attach a drawstring component to allow us to open and close the bag. Now, I tend to do this a certain way. However, for the process of not looking like an idiot, I'm going to be completely honest, I messed up and I didn't leave a gap in my seam, so then I thought, oh, that's fine, I won't refilm that and tell everyone I made a mistake, I will find a way around it. And in finding a way around it, I did find a lovely way to finish off the bag. However, I have done it wrong. I've cut the wrong size, and I was pushing my way through to make it work, and then I was going to edit it to make it look seamless, and that's just not realistic, and it's definitely not what I wanted today's video to be about. Considering I started off by saying you do not need to be good at your hobbies, you do not need to be perfect at your hobbies, I'm sticking true to that after my small hiatus there. So this is me being honest and saying I messed up, and that's totally fine. As I said at the beginning, this is not a tutorial, this is just a craft with me, and I got freaked out and I turned it into a bit of a tutorial, and that's just unrealistic. So I will use what I can before I went wrong, and then I will add this little section in so you can see me spending my evening seam ripping, and then we will come at this fresh-faced on Thursday and finish off this bag, and it will be wonderful because now I have seam ripped, that was perfect timing, seam ripped off this piece, which is too small and doesn't work for this bag, so this can just go in the scrap bin, which is over there. We have a completed outer of the bag, which is wonderful. So to get to this point, I'll just remind you, we sewed fully up this seam, and then we attached this to the circular bottom. We then, with the lining, what you should do, not what I did, is you should sew this side seam, but sew halfway down, back stitch, leave yourself a gap, back stitch and sew the rest of the way down. You should attach your pocket before you even do that, which we did afterwards, but it still works. And then once you've attached your pocket to your lining, you then attach it to the circular bottom like you did with the other bit, with the other piece. So now you have a lining with a side hole for you to turn the bag inside out later, all attached together, and we have a top all attached together. And when I come back on Thursday, I'm going to cut out the pieces for my drawstring casing. I'll talk to you about how I did that and how I worked it out, and then we will sew that final seam, because it's one seam, and then we will, hopefully maybe I'll have a drawstring by then and we can completely finish that bag. But where I'm leaving you just now is with a lining and an outer and what will be a beautiful bag once I don't rush myself and get flustered. So I'm going to finish up, I'm going to get a drink of water because I'm desperate for one. I'm going to go and do some knitting, I think, or spend some time with Angus. I'm not even going to bother cleaning in here because I'll just get overwhelmed, so I'm just going to unplug my machine. That's the beauty of having a craft room, shut the door and come back to this on Thursday when I've got hopefully better luck.
Hello my lovelies, as promised I am back. I'm feeling refreshed. If I'm being honest, I'm feeling pretty tired today, but I am ready to tackle finishing this bag. I feel much better. I'm not mad at it anymore or mad at myself. So we're coming back to finish strong with the bag. I have been out shopping and I have got drawstring cord, so I now can actually finish the bag with you today, which is really good. And I also ended up buying way too many fabric fat quarters for my quilt, my Christmas quilt that I'm going to make, which I might show you at the end if I'm feeling a little bit enthusiastic. Right now I'm tired, and I also want to get working on this pouch before I procrastinate on it. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll maybe show you some of the stuff that I bought. I did have a little bit of a wobble the other day after I'd finished filming, on top of me worrying that I couldn't sew anymore. And I spoke to my friends Rebecca and Maggie and sort of said, guys, this video is going to be long, and I was aiming for 45 minutes and we're already at an hour and I've not even finished the bag. And they were like, Jo, people have the ability to pause videos and come back to it whenever they want. So I know you don't need my permission to do this, but if you were waiting for it, please feel free to pause this video at any point and come back to it when you're crafting at a different time. Clearly I need to get started because I keep yawning, so let me get set up. Apologies for the lighting. It's 9 o'clock, 9:30, and this is as bright as it's getting, so we'll work with what we can. I might have to turn on my big light, which means we're back to not very nice yellow lighting, but we will do what we can with what we have. So let's get started on this drawstring bag. Okay, we're back, and I did have to turn on the light, so apologies for the shadows. What we need to do now is make the drawstring casing for our bag. So this, as a refresher, is our beautiful bag. And if I take my ruler to it, it's approximately 13 inches long. So what I need to do is make a drawstring casing that is just shorter than the width of this. So I want it to probably finish up at about 12.5 inches. I am going to have to do some folding at either edge, and that will probably be about 1/2 inch on each side, so 1 inch in total. So we're going to try and cut 2 pieces 13.5 inches. Now I also want it to stand up decently tall, so I probably want 2 inches in height once it's completed. So that means folded it would be 4 inches plus seam allowance is 5. So I want 12.5, did I say 12.5 or 13.5? 13.5 inches wide by 5 inches, if I can get that. This is a perfect example of when I have to shift my goals based on what scraps I've got left. So I have a lot of scraps, but they're all smaller than the piece that I need, and this is one of the only pieces that's got the width that I want, and for me the width is the most important thing. So I want 13.5 inches, and if I have a look, this ruler is 12, so I've got that here. But, hi Albie, Albie's just joined us. But the maximum I can get out of this piece is 7 inches. So 2 pieces out of this is going to be 3.5. Oh, don't whine. Hello, handsome. Which means when we then fold it in our final object, it'll be 1.75. So smaller than the amount that I originally wanted, but enough that we can get 2 drawstrings through. So I've had to pivot and I'm changing my numbers. So I'm going to cut out of this 2 pieces that are 13.5 inches wide and 3.5 inches tall instead of the 5 inches that I originally wanted. But that's totally fine. As long as you're able to make some adjustments and make some changes based on your scraps, you can use a lot of your scraps in sewing that perhaps you would have just binned otherwise. So I'm going to get my bigger ruler, or I'm going to try and find my bigger ruler, and then I'm going to cut this out. Okay, so I've now cut out 2 pieces that are 13.5 by 3.5 inch squares, rectangles, and I've prepped this one in advance to show you how it's going to look. This is how it will be placed on the bag, and your drawstring will run through it. So to get to here, I have taken my ruler and measured 1/4 inch in with a pen. And all I'm going to do is fold my edge to cover that 1/4 inch line and then press it down. And then fold that 1/4 inch over and press it again.
Sometimes I find it presses first time, sometimes I have to re-press it. It's very annoying. Okay, and then do the same on this side. So 1/4 of an inch over. And 1/4 of an inch over again. So that's why we added an extra 1/2 inch length on each side, because that's it folded over 1/2 inch on both sides, so 1 inch in total. So that's why when we were measuring we added that extra inch for the foldovers. And then as an advanced step, so I don't have to have my iron on, I'm going to fold this whole thing in half, match up the raw edges, and then press this along the seam. And this is because this is what it's going to look like once we have sewn those edges. So repeat that again for the second one we cut out, and you'll have 2 of your drawstring casings. Third reminder, unplug your iron. I will not have anyone burning themselves. Okay, we are now going to go to the sewing machine and sew these pieces down. So I'm going to sew as close as I can to the edge along these folded edges of my drawstring casing. And these are going to be inside, so whatever thread you want to be visible needs to be your bobbin thread, just as an FYI. And I'm going to do that on all 4 of these edges. And I'm going to do it quickly because my fabric seems to be fraying on me. Okay, now is the fun part slash the slightly tricky part, and that is assembling your bag sandwich essentially to sew this big final seam. So what we need first is one of your drawstring casings and your outer fabric. Now I have got the seam on this side and the fold on this side, and I'm going to fold or place my, actually do as I say not as I do, I'm going to trim off the interfacing that's left because that's going to bother me when I'm sewing. So I'm just going to, I really need a new rotary blade, so this might not work, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, okay, that works much better. So we're going to take our drawstring casing, and it's with the folded sides in and folded in half. And what I'm going to do is place this on top of my fabric. Now for me, I have these lines on my these tartan lines, so I can just line mine up with the tartan lines instead of having to work out where halfway is. If you don't have this, I would work out where is halfway on your bag and work out where is halfway on your drawstring casing and match those 2 up. But what I'm going to do is take some pins and pin this to 1 layer of your bag. And I'm placing the pins vertically for a reason. So I'm just going to put 3 pins, 1 on either edge of the casing. And then I'm going to flip this over because we need to do the same thing on this second side. Now, before I do this, I am also going to add a label to mine. So if you have labels, now is the time. I'm just going to try and find mine. So I have some labels by Cat M. And I like these ones because they say perfectly imperfect on them. Oh, this is the last one. I'll have to get some more. But yeah, it's a little pink label that says perfectly imperfect, and I want this on my bag, probably about here. So I'm going to place that there, and then when I am placing this guy on top, again, lining up as best I can, I'm going to find where I put that label and just make sure that one of my pins goes there. So the label is also being held in. I placed the label slightly further down on the tartan because I was accounting for seam allowance. So you don't want it right up at the seam because then you'll eat up half your label. Watch me eat my words and not catch my label now in my seam, but hopefully, just gonna double check that. Maybe I'll move it up a fraction. Just to make sure I catch both ends of it in my seam. Okay, so once that is pinned on, what you can do is go and baste those two pieces on so they don't move while you're sewing, but I'm lazy and like to do as little sewing as possible, so I'm not going to baste, I'm just going to leave them pinned. Now I have my lining, and I am going to pop this bag inside of my lining here. So I'm going to just try and match this up as best as I can. I find placing the bums together of your bags, if you can, easy, and then just allowing it to come up the way. It does look a bit messy, there's lots of bits involved, but we'll get there. So the next thing I do, oh, I've done it the wrong way. Or the next thing I try to do is match up the two seams. So I've put mine in the wrong way, so I just need to pull it out, pop it in so the two seams are together. In you go. So I have my lining seam. Hoping you can see this. Just move it up a bit. There you go. I have my lining seam and my main fabric seam, and I'm going to push these together so that they match up, and I'm going to add a pin, and then I'm just going to make sure that these are in together. I'm going to pull tight, and that's approximately the middle. Again, this is how I do it. If you want to measure it, you totally can, but I'm just going to pin at the other side. And now we have the two sides to pin. So I put these pins in vertically so they stick out on me so I can see where they are. And all I'm going to do is make sure that that is lying flat. I'm going to pull that tight so they're lined up. I'm going to pinch where the 4 layers are and put the pin in again. Okay, find the edge one. Pinch and pin. I'm just going to make sure that the edges of those drawstring casings are nice, which they are. And then I'm going to find the middle one, pinch so the layers stay together, and pin. And that's my 3 pins. And then I'm going to repeat the process for this side. Just going to pull down my lining a bit so I can actually see. There you go. So pinch and pin, pinch and pin, and then I think this might be the one with the label. So I just like to take extra care with this one to make sure I catch all of the layers. Okay, so now we have our lining, our outer, and our drawstring casing all encased in here. And what I'm going to go and do is sew around this seam at a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I sometimes like to do a 1/2 inch, sometimes I do a 1/4 inch. To be honest, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like today. Maybe closer to a 1/2 inch because of the fraying of the tartan fabric. So I'm going to go and do that now, and then we'll almost be done. Okay, so once this is done, I like to try and see if I can see all layers of the seams in here. So there should be 2 linings, main fabric, and then one lining, the 2 layers of your drawstring casing, and then your main fabric. So I've just noticed an issue here, which I'll talk you through in a minute. So I'm just going to pop a pin in that, because I'm going to have to go back and redo that bit. But I'm just double checking I've got all of the layers in here, which I do, and in here, which I do. Okay, fabric, fabulous. So I've noticed here that I have caught my drawstring casing and it's folded back on itself. So before I flip the bag inside out, I'm going to use my seam ripper and just fix that. So that's why I always make sure to double check before I flip the bag out, because this is a problem I could easily spot. And I'm now just gonna resolve it. So I'm just seam ripping the section that's folded over, and then I'm gonna seam rip along to where it should be. Okay, that's where we should be. And I'm just gonna unfold the folded over section of drawstring casing, and then we're just gonna re-sew that segment. So now if I just double check that that is now all caught, which it is, we're in a position to flip this bag out and give it a first look. Now I do flip the bag right side out before I do the final zigzag stitch on here, because it's much easier to pull out a straight stitch than it is to pull out a zigzag stitch. So what you're going to do is go to the gap that we left in our lining and pop your hand in. Now this is where you find out if you left a too big or too small gap. And you're going to pull your right side of your bag through this lining. Now the first time I did this I thought there's absolutely no way, but it does just come together and comes through really slowly, and you just pull it bit by bit, and I just flip it round and pull it out, and bits come as they come. There we go, and now that's the whole bottom of the bag through, which means this bit is a little bit easier now. So the lining is going to follow as well, hopefully, if we did this right. Flippy, flippy, flippy. Slow and steady, because otherwise, if you try and rush this part, you'll rip your seams and it'll be a big disaster. So just do this nice and slow. And then once you get to the point that you can see your seam, then it's much easier to flip your lining right side out. She says, struggling to flip her lining right side out. Come on, little guy. There we go. Okay, so now I just use my hand in the hole to make sure everything is pulled through correctly. And then I'm going to push my lining in the bag the way it's going to line up, and just give it a little to get it all in there. And this is your first glimpse at what the bag is going to look like. We've got our label, which sat nicely in there, all of our encased seams, and our drawstring casing, which looks great. So what you need to do now is check that your top seam has caught at every point, so we don't have any gappage in our drawstring casing attachment or in our side seams. Nothing. This is just a way to double check now that it's flipped the right side out, but we don't have anything. So what I'm going to do is re-pull the bag back through this hole. I know it seems a little bit backwards, but there has been so many times where I have just rushed ahead and sewn that zigzag stitch or used my overlocker, and then when I actually birthed the bag, which is what this part is called, for the first time I realised I'd missed a stitch or missed a seam, or had to rip out because I'd forgotten to add a label. And ripping out that zigzag stitch or that overlocked edge is an absolute nightmare. So Although this might seem a little bit faffy, it is my preferred method to just be sure that I've got the whole bag and all of the seams encased. So I just unberth the bag and then push all of the lining back inside. In you go, buddy. There we go. And then push your exterior back inside your interior, so you're back looking how we sewed it that first time. And we're back with our seam. And because I didn't have any issues, what I'm going to do now is change to a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to zigzag stitch all the way around this seam and then rebirth the bag. So I'll join you once I've rebirthed the bag again to show you what I get up to. Okay, I'm back with a freshly birthed bag, and you're going to need your iron again. That is one thing about sewing. You do need to press a lot of seams a lot of times. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just pulling my lining down so that it's nestling nicely in the bag and that this seam is nice and how I want it, which is a bit tight. And all I'm going to be doing with this iron is running the iron over this seam here so that it's nice and pressed flat. I find that this step, I never used to do it, and then I used to be like, ooh, why do my bags not look as professional as other people's? And it's because they take the time to press them, and I wasn't. So take the time, learn from my mistakes, take the time to press it. I just rotate the bag round, do my little tug on the lining to make sure it's lying nice and flat how I want it, and then press. This is the bit where the two seams join. This will be a little bit thicker than the rest of the bag, so I just make sure to give that a good press. And then keep rotating and going all the way around. And we are pretty much done on this bag now. Just a handful of finishing to go, and then this beautiful project bag will be done and finished to a standard we are proud of. So now, oh, that didn't go very well. There you go. Now that I have pressed all of my edges, the bag is sitting up nicely, and I am going to take the time to top stitch around this edge. So I also need to press my little label down. I'm gonna top stitch about an 1/8 of an inch, or what quilters call a scant 1/8 of an inch, which means like the smallest 1/8 of an inch that you can possibly imagine. And I'm gonna do that all the way around this seam here, because that will keep my drawstring casing up, my lining down, and it'll just finish it off nicely. So I'm gonna go around and do that now, and then I'll come and nip off any of these random threads we've got, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how to thread your drawstring. Oh, one other thing you need to do is close up your lining. So in your lining seam there will be a gap where we turned out the bag. All you do is pull that tight and it'll fold in those edges, and I just run down it with my sewing machine. Some people will use a hand sewing technique to make it not as visible. I find that nobody ever notices, so I'm just going to straight stitch down this seam as well to close up your bag. Okay everyone, we are doing it. We're on the last step. So, let me get my chair out of the way. For the last step, you're going to need some drawstring and you're going to need a, what's this called? Safety pin. I may have gone a little bit crazy in the shop yesterday and I may have picked up almost every colour that they had in their, like, it's like a shiny drawstring. Is that it all? Oh, nope, there's another one. Is that it all? Oh, nope, there's another one. Right, I think that's it. Yeah, okay. So I may have gone a bit crazy and picked up every colour under the sun for this. And I wanted to have a look and see what I thought would be a good colour for this bag. Now, I personally like have other projects that I want to use the blues for, and I don't necessarily think that the blues poke out as much in this fabric as the other colours. So I'm kind of tempted by green or maybe the yellow, but the yellow doesn't contrast enough, so not the yellow. Maybe the blue? No. Maybe the pink? No. No, the green is the one that's speaking to me. Don't know why. So we're gonna go for the green and I'm gonna pop these back away. So when I purchased these, I purchased 4 meters of each one because I'm going to use them for multiple projects. But just some drawstring cord, you could probably get away with 1 meter, but I would get 2 meters to be safe. And what we need to do now is thread this through our drawstring casing. So you take your big paper, nope, it's not a paper clip, Joe, it's a safety pin, and you push it through your cording so that it's caught in the strands of the cording. And try not to stab yourself when you do this. And then I close up. And what I'm going to do now is pop my safety pin through here and then just feed it all the way through. So I'm just pushing the safety pin up on the inside and then pulling down the fabric. This should be fairly easy to do because the drawstring casing is large enough that we've left enough space for this. And then we're at the end. And then we just need to flip it over and come back through this drawstring casing. So our drawstring now goes all the way through both sides of our casing. And what we want to do is leave a little handle, so I'm going to pull some more through. That's probably about right. And I'm going to take my big scissors and snip. And then we're going to take both ends and tie them in a knot. So I just do a very simple knot and I push my knot right to the edge and pull it as tight as I can get it. Now I will go to my, oh, is that going to pull out? Maybe. No. I will probably go to my lighter and just burn the end of the cord so it doesn't fray, but for now that's staying in and it doesn't seem to be coming out. So that's a little knot at the end of your drawstring casing. We are then going to do the second drawstring that actually allows it to close. So you need to do the same process, which is put your safety pin through your drawstring, but this time you're going to start at the opposite end to the end we started last time, so the opposite end to the one with the knot, and we're going to feed it through this first half. And then we're going to do the same as what we did last time, which is just pull the bag so it's at its largest point and go for roughly the same length of excess as we did last time. So you can see this has already started to fray, so I'm definitely going to find my lighter or use my hob and burn the edges just so they don't fray all the way down. Oh, that was too close to the edge. Tie the knot. Pull it tight. There we go. Just in case you were wondering, I went and measured this. I bought 4 meters of this, and I have 2 meters and 16 centimeters left. So if you're going to make this bag, you need 2 meters of drawstring for this size of bag.
Okay, we've done it. We've finished the bag. I am really proud of it, and I'm happy that I took the time, took a break, and came back to it because I think it looks great. So here we have it, our beautiful rainbow quilted bag with our little perfectly imperfect label on there. There is still some threads I need to get. Our lovely green drawstring cord that shuts the bag up and then can be reopened. Ooh, dropped it. Inside we have our black and white lining, and on this side we have our rainbow pockets in there, so there'll be space to put stitch markers, any needles you don't want to lose, all that sort of stuff in there. And the little drawstring folds over nicely at the top as well to sit open when you're working on it. I love this bag. I love the shape of these bags. I'm really glad that I learned how to make circular bottomed bags, and as much as I may have made it seem a little bit harder than it is because I had to do 2 days and, you know, several sittings and made a couple of mistakes, they are very simple to do and anyone can really make one. So yeah, this is the bag that we will be giving away for my 1000 subscriber giveaway. I am planning on adding a skein of yarn to this, either from my stash or one that I purchase. I haven't quite decided yet, so there will be a skein of yarn inside of here too, and if I'm feeling really adventurous I might make some clay stitch markers, but it will depend on time and when I get around to actually adding those additional items. But yeah, this will be my 1000 subscriber giveaway gift bag or project bag, and I really love it, and I'm really glad that I took the time and that we got to make it together. So that is my completed project bag. So that, alongside all of the quilt stars that we made, makes a wonderful crafty couple of days. I'm really glad actually I took the break, because now I feel really pleased with that bag and I took my time and I'm really happy with the finish of it. Particularly when I'm gifting it to someone else, I wouldn't want it to feel rushed in any way. So just another reminder, crafting is meant to be fun. We put these deadlines on ourselves 90% of the time. A present can be late. You know, you can, unless you're doing it for like a raffle or something, your presents can be gifted a couple of days late for them to be perfect or close to perfect, rather than you rushing through them and being really stressed. It's meant to be fun. Gifting things that are handmade is meant to be enjoyable. So just remember that when you're crafting, and I need a big old sign in my craft room that says exactly that. I now have the fabric cut out for 3 more bags, one very similar to the one we've just made for myself, and then the 2 in the lovely blue and yellow tartan fabric that we cut out at the beginning. So I'm going to spend some time hopefully this week making some of those. If not, they're already cut out, so it makes a really easy sewing project for a couple of evenings, because the cutting out is the worst part. I said I was going to show you some fabric fat quarters that I bought. I'm going to do that now because I think they're really sweet and I want to show you them. But if you're not interested in watching what I picked up at the fabric shop, then thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some company while you were crafting, which was the goal. And yeah, I hope if you make one of these project bags that you tag me in it. My
Instagram is designs.madebyjo. I would love to see any project bags that you make or try and make, and if you do have any questions, please do put them in the comments below and I will try and answer them. Like I say, this wasn't a tutorial as such, and there are much better tutorials on YouTube. If you type in circular bottom drawstring bag, like I say, Rosie Caldwell has a pattern, so if you just want to have the whole pattern, she has a really good option. A slightly different bag, Ali from This Little Wonderful Life, I think that's one of her channels, I can't remember, but she does a tutorial called Dodgy Bag Tutorial, and if you type in Dodgy Bag Tutorial it'll come up, and that's for a boxed bottom project bag. But there is loads, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tutorials on YouTube for project bags that go and have an explore and see if there's one that takes your fancy. But yeah, let me grab my wares from this trip. I went to visit my sister and my nephew yesterday with my mum, and we found a sewing shop. I went in for drawstring cord for the purpose of this bag, and I ended up leaving with a giant bag of stuff. So I'm just going to dump all the drawstrings on the floor. So, like I said, I am making a quilt, a Christmas quilt. I've mentioned it a couple times throughout this video, and I have a bag underneath my desk that is accumulating Christmas crafting fabrics to make this quilt. And when I went into the shop, they were doing 20% off all of their fat quarters, and some of them were Christmassy, so I had to pick up a few. For every single fat quarter pairing, I picked up 2 fat quarters. Because I wanted to be sure I had enough for whatever I wanted to do with it. So the place I went is the sewing station, which is in Broughty Ferry. It's on Grey Street near the train station, and it was very nice. It's very small and there's a lot of stuff in there, so maybe don't take all of your friends with you, but I would recommend. I had a nice time, and I think we should always be supporting small businesses where we can. I could have bought drawstring online, and there is small businesses online to buy drawstring cord from, but most people would look at the postage price or the time it would take and just order from Amazon. But if we don't support small businesses, they're not going to last any longer. So I bought from the sewing station in Broughty Ferry, and I would recommend you find a local sewing shop and see if they have drawstring cord too. Okay, so the first fat quarter pairing that I got is this lovely teal with some ornamental baubles on it, and I picked that one up. I'll do my non-Christmassy ones at the end, because I did buy non-Christmassy ones. I purchased 2 of these guys because they were £1 each, and they're just black with little wreaths on. And my thought process was that not all of these will make it into the quilt, because not all of these are what I want in my quilt. But I thought a fat quarter is a great size piece of fabric for making project bags, so I bought them with the intention of also using them to make project bags. The next one, which is kind of similar to that wreath one, is this, and this is very difficult to see, but these were also £1, and they're Christmassy caravans. If you're new here, you won't know, but my partner Angus and I just converted a van into a camper van, and I just thought that this would be super cute, a little Christmas camper van or caravan fabric. This one is definitely going to go in the quilt, I think. Actually, now I'm saying that, it might go in the bag. It is different ice skates, which I thought was adorable, in a blue background. This one I really liked, and my nephew made me open it at lunch yesterday, so you'll get the full effect. This one is hot chocolate mugs and gingerbread men, and I thought that was so sweet. So that one might be a project bag because it's just adorable. And like I say, I've got 2 of them as well. This one was the first one I saw in the fat quarter section, and that's why I started digging and why I ended up where I am. So I'm fully going to blame this fabric for that, but it's a little fabric with mistletoe and holly and crackers on it, and I really liked that. Then we've got this guy, which is little wreaths and dogs. I have a dog, I love my dog, I love dogs. It was an obvious choice. And then there's only 2 more Christmassy ones. I told you I went a bit crazy. This is the same caravan fabric but with a black background, so I don't need to show you that one. Oh, there's 3 Christmassy ones left, sorry. This is another bauble fabric, but they're bigger. This one has them bigger, and it's on a white background with the teal baubles on. And then this one I just had to have because it was so cute. This one's got miniature baubles on it on a cream background. And I thought that was adorable. So that's all my Christmas ones, and then when I was in there I saw 2 other ones. This one was in their Easter section. It's carrots and radishes and things, and I just thought that was adorable, so I picked that up. And then if I see a fabric with a Highland cow on it, I'm gonna buy it. It's just gonna happen. I love Highland cow fabric, so I picked up this guy. He's got like technically I think it's probably a woman, but it doesn't really matter. This beautiful little Highland cow on a cream background. So I picked up that as well. So I went in for drawstring cord. I bought every single colour of drawstring cord they had, and I came out with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sets of 2 backwaters. Oh, I have a problem. And the whole time I kept going, someone needs to stop me, someone needs to stop me. And obviously the shopkeeper wasn't going to stop me. And my sister was with me and she was like, I like it. I like when you just buy stuff. So no one was there on my side to help me. Cry. Anyway, thanks for sticking around if you wanted to see all my fabric backwaters. Like I said before, it is a delight as always to spend time with you. Thank you for doing some crafting with me. I hope you got some crafting done. I hope you had a relaxing time. I will see you very soon in my next podcast episode where we will be announcing the giveaway, so I will be able to show the project bag as well as the yarn I am gifting, and if I add any other goodies that will be included in that video, and then it will be the following podcast that I will be picking a winner. So please stick around, hit the subscribe button if you want to be able to see when we're giving away this lovely bag. Apparently YouTube is now using likes. That's what they're prioritizing to get your channel seen by other people, so if you could take 2 seconds to press the like button on this video, that would be amazing. It doesn't really mean anything for you, but for me it means that people that watch similar things to you will probably be shown my videos, which just allows me to spend time with other people. If you make these project bags, if you make a project bag like this, you can tag me on Instagram, which is designs.madebyjo, and I would love to see any bags that you make, or hear about them in the comments below. If you don't use Instagram, please feel free to comment down below. Let me know if you make one of these bags. I would love to know about it. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great rest of your week. I am off to edit this video before heading to the gym, and yeah, we will catch up very soon. Bye!